Hello friends, my name is Kumar and welcome back to our channel Kumar Programming. Today from our JavaScript interview question answer series, we are going to learn about lexical scoping and closure. Lexical scoping and closures are very important from the interview perspective as well as coding perspective both. If I ask this question to the candidate, believe me, 70% candidates are saying that we are not aware about it or they are not able to give the proper answer. From the name, it looks like it's very complex, but believe me, it's very simple. At the end of this video, you are going to completely learn about lexical scoping and closure, and you will be able to answer to the interviewer in detail. And you won't be having any doubt about lexical scoping and closure. Why we are having this both lexical scoping and closure together? Because lexical scoping is a part of closure, or you can say closure use lexical scoping. Okay, so if we understood about the lexical scoping properly, then we would be able to understand easily closure as well. So that's why we are having both of the topics together today, and eventually we are going to have the practical demonstration in order to understand in a better way. So now let's start. So what is lexical scoping and closure in JavaScript? Now let's first understand the definition. Lexical scoping is also known as static scoping, okay? And it is a scoping mechanism where the scope of a variable is determined by its location in the source code at the time of its compilation. And it is based on physical structure of the code and the nesting of functions. What does it mean? So let's understand with the diagram. Here if you see the complete green zone I have considered as a global or script scope, and the yellow zone that I have considered as a local or function scope, and the red section that I have considered as a block scope, right? Now come to the point here. So suppose that here I have created a variable as a inside our global scope, then this a variable will be accessible in our local scope as well as this will be accessible in our block scope both. Okay, and if we have declared a variable inside our local scope, suppose that here I have created a variable b, then this b variable will be accessible throughout this local scope as well as it will be accessible inside this block scope as well, right? And if I have created a variable c inside our block scope, then this c variable will be accessible inside this block only, right? And this c variable will not be accessible inside the local block as well as inside the global block. Okay, and each and every block, this local scope block, global scope block, and block scope, right? Each and every block is creating a lexical scope. So here we have one lexical scope and here we have another lexical scope, and this is a global lexical scope, right? And this whole things is known as a lexical environment. Okay, now let's understand with the code. So if you see here, I have created a variable a, and then after that I have created a function first. So this a variable is created inside a global scope, right? So this is my global scope, and then after that I have created a function here, and this function is having its own scope. Okay, and then after that inside this function I have created another function which is having its own scope, right? So if you see here, we have three scope. This is my global scope, and this is my local scope, and this is my block scope, right? So these all scopes are a lexical scope. Okay, and if we declare any variable in the parent scope, then this variable will be accessible to the all the child scope, right? And if we declare a variable b over here, then this b variable will be accessible to the this child scope, right? But if we declare any variable in the second in this scope, in the block scope, then this c variable will not be accessible to the any outer scope. So only the variable scope is flowing from top to bottom, from parent to child. Okay, so that is known as a scope chain, and these scopes are known as a lexical scope, and these variables scope are determining on the basis of their position where exactly they have declared, and that mechanism is known as a lexical scoping, right? And here if you see, I'm trying to use this b variable which is lexically scoped from our local lexical scope, right? So what will happen? Our JavaScript engine will try to find first of all in this scope, right? And if it won't find inside this scope, then it will try to find out in our parent scope. If it will get the value from the parent scope, then it will print over here. If it won't get the value from the parent scope, then it will go to the global scope, okay, next parent scope. And if the variable is declared over here, then it will print the value over here, right? Like see here we are trying to access a variable, so a variable is not in this scope, so it will check inside the parent scope, right? And inside the parent scope also it's not declared, so it's going to be further check with the global scope, and our JavaScript engine will find out the value over here, right? So it's going to be access inside this our block scope, and this process is known as a scope chain resolution. So friends, I hope that you are understanding about the lexical scoping and what is lexical scope and lexical environment and what is scope chain and what is scope chain resolution. Now let's see the practical demonstration. Let's flip to the Visual Studio. So here in our previous video, we have learned about where, let and const keyword in detail, and also we have seen about their scoping. Now let me create another file over here inside the basic itself, lexical underscore closures.js file. Okay, now in this file, I'm going to use the same code that I have explained. So see here in this global scope, I have created a variable a, and then I have created another function inside this global scope, that is a function first, and then inside this function I have created another function as a function second, right? So these all are the lexical scope, right? And this a and b variable are lexically scoped inside this child block, right? If you try to access this c variable inside this block and this block, then c variable won't be able to accessible, right? So always our scope access flows from top to bottom, and that is known as a scope chain, right? And if we try to access this a variable from global access, so first JavaScript engine will check inside this block, and if it won't find, then it will go to the parent block, and if it's not declared inside the parent block, then it will go to the global block, right? And if the variable is declared inside the global block, then it will accessed over here, and that process is known as a scope chain resolution. And the scope of each and every variable is determined on the basis of their location where they have declared, and that process is known as a lexical scoping, right? So now let's run this. Let me run this current file. Now here you can see hello Kumar programming. So here we are printing our a b c, all those three variables, right? And if you see, if I'm trying to access this c variable outside of this block, see this c variable is having scope inside this function only, right? If I'm trying to access the c variable outside of this block, then it won't be able to accessible, right? Now let's see, it should be giving error. Now we are getting a c is not defined. So this c variable is not getting accessed by its parent scope, right? So always our variable are getting scope from our parent to child, not from child to parent, right? And if you see, if we try to access this variable a over here, then we will be able to successfully get the value of a. And if we try to get the value of a and b over here, we would be able to get the value of a and b as well, right? So now let me run this. See, for the this a is declared as a global scope, so here we can see a is as a hello, and here you see inside this first block we are getting the value of a and b both. So here we are having our hello Kumar, and the innermost block that we are having access for a, b and c, all the variables. So here we are getting the value of hello Kumar programming. It's easy, isn't it? So friends, I hope that you are understanding about the lexical scoping. I'm going to create a separate video for closure, because if I include closure in this video, then it's going to be a very lengthy video. So I'll keep this video short, and I'll create another video for closure in the second part of it. And friends, if you have any suggestion, feedback or comments, please write down, and definitely I'll try to get back to you on those as soon as possible. So this come to the end of this video. I'll see you in my next video. Till then, take care and keep learning.